You're listening to Death Metal Disco.
Hey there. Hi there. Hola. Howdy. Hey there. Hi there. Hola. Howdy. Hello, hello, hello. My friends, family, whoever the fuck is listening, I am back. I've been neglecting you. I apologize again. Some shit's gone down, and it's fine. I'm going to catch you up real quick. Welcome to episode 5 of season 3 of the Death Metal Disco podcast. I'm James. If you're new here, this is just me rambling on. Sometimes with themes, sometimes not so much. Sometimes I say shit that I just probably shouldn't say and shouldn't tell people. This is almost like an audio diary or audio therapy. And I thank you for being my unpaid therapists. So, if you listen, I truly appreciate you. Thank you very much. If you share, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. If you start to listen and then change your mind because you hate me or whatever I have to say, that's fine too. Thank you. I appreciate you as a person, probably, maybe. If I know you. If I don't know you, I might not appreciate you. But that's just because I don't know you. So introduce yourself. Say hi. Find me on social media. I'll have a link in the thing to my link tree or whatever it's called. And you can find me. You can stalk me. You can do whatever from there if you want to. Or if you don't want to, that's fine too. I piss people off from time to time, from what I'm told. So, yay me. Anyway, it's been like 3 weeks, a month or so since the last episode. Not a lot has changed since then, except that been a little sad. Had some personal drama, and that's been bumming me out immensely. But it'll be okay. I'll be okay. Everybody will be okay, and it's for the better ultimately. Sometimes things just have to end, and that's what it is. So I'm not going to get into it. Anyway, welcome back, Death Metal Disco. I really appreciate it. Just to catch you up, I meant to talk about this on the last one, and I didn't. When I was saying I was traveling a lot, I was in North Carolina. I've spent some quality time in North Carolina over the last year. I've had to go, I don't even know how many trips I've made there, but most of that time, actually almost all of that time, has been going to Raleigh-Durham area, flying into RDU and staying near Raleigh, working in Raleigh. And it's been great. I like the East Coast side of the country because of all of the fucking trees. I've said that before. So many trees. I'm not even like a tree nerd. Like, I don't geek out over trees. I'd be very hard pressed to identify specific types of trees, but I fucking love them. That's one thing I like about the older neighborhoods here in Colorado and Denver is the tree growth. Like newer housing developments, you know, they have newly planted trees, and they're just small and tiny, and they haven't leafed out all over the place, and it's just not the same. And even in my apartment complex, this apartment's been here for maybe 13 years. I've been here for 10 now, which is a lot. The trees, mostly evergreen type of trees, they're much larger now than they were 10 years ago when I first moved in, which is good. And a lot of the non-evergreen trees, perennials, is that the word? I don't know. Some of them are big. A lot of them die. They just don't survive. They're poorly planted or in little sections of grass between concrete and curb, or where the plows push all the snow in the winter. And it just seems like a lot of them don't survive that process. But I just like it when they're old trees. I like old trees, I guess is all I'm saying. And that's what I really like about the East Coast. So when I go visit my mom in Atlanta, or any work I've had to do on the East Coast has been good just because of the trees. I like the fucking trees. In 2019, I helped my friend Rachel drive cross country. She picked me up here at my house, and then we drove from here down to Alabama. And I've never driven through Kansas. I didn't expect anything. I've heard nothing good, nothing exciting about it. But about halfway through Kansas, it started to get pretty and trees everywhere. And it was actually a very nice scenic drive once you got it halfway through, and then it continued through, which was good. So I like that. I've heard Nebraska's boring. Haven't made that drive, so I'm good. That's my rant about the trees. Anyway, trips to North Carolina, most of which have been to Raleigh. When I was there in May, part of my trip included going down to Charlotte for the Coca-Cola 600. I was helping our customers support them, working with their people to support the Coca-Cola 600 NASCAR race, which is a huge NASCAR event that I don't know anything about NASCAR, except they turn left at high speeds, and there's a lot of power in those cars, and, rednecks. That's what I know. And I have nothing against NASCAR. I don't care about it. I can appreciate the science that goes into that and all of that good stuff, but what I did not know is the totality of what is involved in those events. Like, they had some concert stuff planned with the whole weekend. It was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event, and had to be there the whole time. So that was down outside of Charlotte. And I haven't been to Charlotte since, 20-something years ago. And that was when I would fly into Charlotte when my mom lived in South Carolina. Fly into Charlotte, we would drive from the airport down to Columbia, South Carolina. And that's what I knew about Charlotte. I think we toured around there once, but that was it. I don't know anything about it, but hadn't been there in a very long time. I will say it was very cool. I really enjoyed Charlotte. I think part of that enjoyment was being a college town. Granted, it was at the end of the semester. I don't know when they graduated or anything like that, but I don't think it was quite as college-y as it normally would have been, maybe a week or two earlier than that, because this was Memorial Day weekend. So the scenery, quote unquote, wasn't as prevalent, but I was in a super bad mood that whole week. And then going down there take the suck away just a little bit, just because of the scenery. My coworker and we stayed at a hotel downtown, which was weirdly the cheapest out of all the hotels listed when I booked it. And it's called the Grand Bohemian, and it's one of the top tier levels of the Marriott Bonvoy chains. Can't remember what they call that particular line, but the Grand Bohemian, I have never felt, that's not true. I have probably very rarely felt underclassed at a hotel before, especially traveling for work. Most of the hotels we stay at are Hampton Inns, Hilton Garden Inns, the business type hotels. But this hotel was like a modern luxury hotel. It would be really good to take your girlfriend, spouse, whatever, for a date weekend, something like that. It's just in my opinion, it was a sexy hotel, a very kind of ritzy, sexiness to it. The coloring, the decor, is lots of purples and like fuchsias that, to me, kind of like I inferred like a sexy nightclub vibe just across the whole thing. It just felt that way. They had, I guess it was a customer's. It wasn't one of theirs, but it was a customer car. That was the Lamborghini SUV that they had in the valet, and they keep it parked right in the front. They also have a car service. So, like, hotels will often have a shuttle van, shuttle bus, whatever, that you can request to take you here or there, and nominal fee or tipping the driver, or sometimes even free, not just to the airport or whatever. But this one had a actual car. Can't remember what the car was. It was a pretty nice car, some sort of Lincoln or something, that you could actually reserve and go drive around on your own, apparently. I don't know how that works. I think I saw the car once there. It was just a black car. I can't remember what it was, but you could do that with it. But this hotel, like, it was good. The restaurant was good, kind of pricey. We had lunch there the day we checked in. Pricey lunch. We didn't do much for the race. Like, the race, we sat around, which was the plan all along, but it rained the entire weekend, so nobody actually raced. I think they ran a couple practice laps, and that was about it. They didn't even do any of the concert action. I think they moved one of the concerts to a secondary stage that wasn't the original planned stage. And that was about it. A lot of people showed up for the main thing on Sunday, but, the rain. So ultimately, it took forever before they called it, but they called it for the rain. So we were there. I don't remember if we had to do anything Monday. I think Monday I came home. Chris and I both went home. But yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday I drove from Raleigh down to Charlotte. It was like a 2-hour drive. Really, really pretty drive. And then we sat around, we got lunch, and went there for a little bit, hung out, did nothing, had some meetings with some of their people that we did some trainings with, little side trainings, which good. I mean, it wasn't completely unproductive or anything. It was actually nice to get some one-on-one time with some people who felt like they were maybe unsure or untrained in things, because they were, but that's not the point. The Grand Bohemian, that place was dope. The rooms were cool. What I really liked about the Grand Bohemian, and I'm sure there's other hotels that do this, to my knowledge, I cannot think of one that I've stayed at that had this, but on each floor at the, so you get at the elevator and then you go left or right or whatever, but then down to another hall, which has all the rooms. At the end of the hall, closest to the elevator, they had one of those bottle filler stations, like not just a drinking fountain. In fact, I don't even think there was a drinking fountain. I think it was just a straight up bottle filler, where you just refill your damn bottles. And it was the coolest thing. So even if you go into the room, in the room they had their, I don't even remember if it was a full mini bar, but they had bottles, bottles of water that were $5 for, I want to say it was like a half-liter size bottle, but they were the metal bottles, and you pay the $5 for it, and then you could just refill that thing. And I thought that was brilliant to have those things there, because I used the shit out of those. I mean, we weren't in the rooms all that often, but I usually buy like 1.5 liter bottle of Fiji when I hit the store, when I first get into a town when I travel, and then I try to just refill that as often as I can. Even if I buy like another 2.5 gallon jug of water and just keep that in the room, it's cheaper, less plastic waste, yada, yada, yada. But having that bottle filler thing built into the hotel, one less thing for me to have to buy, one less thing for me to have to manage in the room or clean up in the room, and just having it there, so convenient. As long as you remember to take your hotel key, your room key, with you when you go refill, because otherwise you'll lock yourself out like I did. So, yay me. The Grand Bohemian, at that location, I can't remember the name of it, but up at the top, they had a rooftop bar. It was inside, but it had balcony, but it was raining, so nobody was really out on the balcony. And that bar was it was a lot bigger than it looked originally. They had a massive bar area that you could sit around, and then they had a more expanded side that was like a restaurant setup / lounge setup. It was fancy. They had 2 DJs. We went up there 2 nights, and they had 2 DJs both nights. One DJ each night, I guess. Totally different vibe between the 2 DJs, but given the weather, it wasn't all that popular, or, wasn't all that busy. A lot of people just probably didn't go out, but we were there, and we were severely underdressed. They did have a dress code, but they didn't say anything about it. I was just there in a t-shirt. I think Chris just wear his work polo. But we went there, had dinner there, at least one of the nights, drinks both the nights. Chris doesn't drink. I managed to drink a lot. I was in such a bad mood, I decided I needed to self-medicate pretty heavily. And I did. And then there was a weird old guy, like, he was easily in his 60s, and this was, I think, the second night. He walked in, and he was with a girl who, I mean, she was there and she was drinking, so she had to be at least 21, but if she was 22, I would call bullshit, because she didn't look 18, to be honest. It was a very interesting dynamic between the two of them, and Chris and I were wondering, they sat across from us at the bar, and I was pretty lit when they walked in, and I didn't know, maybe it was paid for, maybe it was a trafficking thing, and my brain was going fucking bonkers because it was just gross. Like, there had to be at least a 25-year gap between the two of them, probably even more. Like I said, he looked like he was easily in his 60s, and she was maybe 22, maybe. And that's a hard maybe. And the whole time, my stupid ass was drunk, pissed off. But, I'm a generally happy drunk, but I'm not afraid to start talking shit to people, even though I'll get my ass kicked. Yeah, if it wasn't for Chris, I probably would have confronted that dude, just because I'm that kind of fucking asshole, especially when I was in that kind of mood. And we even asked the bartender, whose name I forget now. She was cute. But I asked the bartender, I was like, what the hell's going on with that situation? She goes, I don't know. We've been wondering that ourselves. And I was like, oh, well, how long does it take for security to get from the first floor up to this floor in the event you needed to call them? She's like, it's like 7 minutes. And I was like, oh, good to know. and I don't think she would have cared if I had confronted them. But it was very awkward, and it was sketchy for sure. It was at minimum, it was an escort situation. And if that's the case and she was there voluntarily, more power to her. Do your thing, girl. Get your money. But if it wasn't, I wanted to break that guy's legs at the thigh. And that I desperately wanted to find out, but Chris kept me out of trouble. So, Chris, if you happen to listen to this, thank you. That second night that we were there, that was the night that that I went hard. I had a lot of drinks because I was just extra pissed off. And we didn't have to go into work until later on that Sunday. So this was Saturday night. Yeah, I could sleep in a little bit. So I went a little hard, and, I paid for dinner on my corporate card and then paid for drinks, unfortunately, on my personal card. And it added up really quickly, but it was a good time. Chris is good company, so it made sense. And thank God he kept me out of trouble, because if I had been alone and that drunk, it would have been bad. It would have been bad, guaranteed. But lately I've been getting back into colognes, fragrances, men's fragrances, unisex fragrances, whatever. Everybody likes things that smell nice. And it started a couple years ago with some candles. I got some nice smelling candles that I never really burn. I'll just occasionally smell them just because they smell nice. But I have started buying a lot of colognes, and that night I ordered like $500 worth of colognes. Like a fucking idiot. They're good colognes. They're great colognes. Yeah, a couple samples in there, and then a couple full bottles that actually were bottles that I wanted to buy anyway. But I bought them all at one time, and that was when I was drunk in my room about to fall asleep. So that was smart. Anyway, so that was Charlotte. Anyway, Charlotte's fucking great. I really like Charlotte, and I hope I get to go back soon. We have another project that just started near there. It's not mine, but I hope I get to go for it again, or at least go do something in Charlotte, because Charlotte was cool. I really like Charlotte. Anyway, you might have caught from the beginning of this episode a little bit of Mudvayne dig, which is awesome. So there's that. Recently, since my homie Chris, the one half of the hetero life mate, has become divorced, he's decided that he really loves going to concerts again, and something that for whatever reason he just didn't do as much when he was married. And we go. So we went to the psychotherapy sessions, which was like a trip back in time 20 years ago, where Mudvayne headlined with Cold Chamber, Guar, Nonpoint, and Butcher Babies at Fiddler's Green. And I personally don't really care for Fiddler's Green. I've been there, I don't know, maybe 10 times total. It's not my favorite venue. It's not a terrible venue. I do like that it's closer than any other venue to my house. So it's, if I Uber, it's not a far drive. If I drive, it's not a far drive. It's in the Denver Tech Center, so they have like a pretty early curfew for sound ordinances and stuff like that. Like, I think they got to be done by 11 at the latest, and that's on a Friday or Saturday night, and then shows during the week or probably even earlier than that. But I remember seeing this tour package, I don't know, back in May, and it's been a long time since I've seen Mudvayne, and it's been even longer since I've seen Cold Chamber. I saw Cold Chamber at my very first concert, which was Ozfest 97, And that was, I went to Ozfest 97 to go see Marilyn Manson, Typo Negative, Fear Factory, and Pantera, but mostly those first three, and a little bit of Cold Chamber, and then Black Sabbath and Ozzy. And mostly Marilyn Manson, Typo Negative, and Fear Factory. Mostly Fear Factory and Marilyn Manson. That was why I went. And back then, for at least those first few years of the Ozfest tours, the side stage, at least for that year, had, I think it was 4, maybe 5 bands, and they would play 2 sets through the whole thing. Later, it turned into they'd have a shit ton of bands, and then they'd all start on the second stage, and then eventually you'd have like the last 4 or 5 bands play on the main stage. And I don't know which I preferred. I think that was at the old Mile High Stadium back before they tore that down and had the whatever the new one's called. I don't even remember what the new one's called. That was my first concert. My sister had been to a couple other concerts with my dad. I think she'd been to Alanis Morissette, and I can't remember her name. I can't remember her name. Doesn't matter. Anyway, so the first time I saw Cold Chamber was at that. They played one set, and I kind of stood in the breezeway between the outside because the second stage wasn't a parking lot, really. It was kind of like it was just outside the stadium, and then we had seats on the inside the stadium. And I stood in the middle so I could hear both stages. I didn't want to walk all the way down to the second stage. That second stage had like Drain STH, which I think is an all-female band from Sweden. I can't remember the name of the other bands. Any of them, and one has been around for a really fucking long time. I don't even remember. But saw them, and they're, super new metal. Like, when I think of new metal, I actually think of Cold Chamber. I don't think of Limp Bizkit. I don't think of Korn. I think of Cold Chamber because, to me, they kind of embodied the entirety of the new metal vibe. The Janko jeans, the Hot Topic pants with the straps, which may have just been Jankos with straps. Eyeliner, unnecessarily black nail polish, kind of the goth new metal thing. When I think new metal, I think of that style, not necessarily just the Jankos, but I kind of think of them specifically when I think of new metal. So I hadn't seen them since 1997. Mudvayne I haven't seen since probably 2004, 2005, and I think I saw them 2 or 3 times back in the day. The first time I saw them, I want to say it was with Slipknot for sure, but I can't remember if it was at Tattoo the Earth 2000, which was at Red Rocks, or if it was at the Fillmore. I can't remember who opened the Fillmore show. There was only 3 bands at the Fillmore. Slipknot headlined. Mudvayne was right before them, and then somebody else opened. I probably have the ticket stub for that somewhere still. It may or may not be faded, but I used to keep all my ticket stubs back before the digital age. All I remember is that I think the first time I saw them, I was blown away by them, but not so much that I was like, these guys are fucking phenomenal. The second time, however, must have been after Red Rocks. The second time, I'm pretty sure, was the Fillmore, and they should have, compared to Slipknot, I thought they should have headlined. I love old Slipknot. I think their first 2 albums are really, really good, especially the first one. The first one is phenomenal to me. It's just so intense, whatever. But I think for that show, at least, Mudvayne destroyed it. I think they should have had all the glory for that tour, but Slipknot was reigning king at the time and probably still are. But for this show, Mudvayne was headlining, which was cool. Chris convinced me to buy lawn tickets, which Fiddler's Green has seats, and then they have general admission on the grass. It's not terrible. It's cool. Like, a lot of people bring picnic blankets and shit like that. It's not my favorite. Like I said, it holds like almost 19,000 people. I had to Google that when I was there to find out how many people it holds because I wasn't sure. It holds 19,000 people, something like that. It had rained very heavily the night before, and when we went through security and scanned our tickets, they said, just because you're general admission, due to the rain last night, we're moving everybody in general admission up into seats because of the grass being super soaked. which was bullshit. They just didn't sell enough tickets to that tour for that venue, which is fine. Like, I get it. But they made it about the grass being terribly wet, which is not something that was true. But which was cool because I was happy that we got seats because I'm old as fuck now and get tired of standing forever. And it was 5 bands, so didn't really feel like standing up for 6 hours. And I don't like to sit down on the ground because then I look like a fat whale trying to stand up when I have to stand up. And it's just a little bit embarrassing. So if I can sit in a chair instead, that's cool, especially if I don't have to pay extra money for it. But anyway, we get in. I'd never seen the Butcher Babies. I'd never seen Nonpoint. I've seen Guar, but it'd been easily 10 years since I've seen Guar. And then Cold Chamber and Mudvayne. The Butcher Babies opened, and I've heard some of their music. I've heard a few singles, some of their newer singles when they came out. I follow Carla Harvey. She's the brunette. I follow her on Instagram, mostly because she's beautiful, but she seems cool as hell, and she does some really cool art. She's dating Charlie Benante, the drummer, who's playing for Pantera, who was in town a couple weeks ago. I was out of town. I would have gone to that if I was in town, but even though it's not the Pantera, as people were saying, you know, it'd be nice to go see that music live again from a band that is solid. And I know that they were good, and I saw a lot of people at that show that I would have seen at the OG Pantera shows. So I'm sad I missed that, but not, you know, heartbroken or anything. But anyway, Butcher Babies, gotta say, not super fond of the music. It's just not my thing. They have some stuff that I dig. They had some good grooves. From what I know about the lyrics, there wasn't really anything that resonates with me. I can't. Originally, when I first saw the Butcher Babies come out, I thought that it was just a marketing scheme to hot ladies with large fake boobs doing the metal thing as the singers. To me, that screams pandering to the metal community at the time. After seeing them perform live, I've seen some videos of their performances live, and those chicks throw the fuck down. I know nothing about the male musicians, the guitar players, bassist, drummer. I know nothing about those dudes. I've never looked at any of them because their music just doesn't make me want to. Like, it doesn't make me care enough to find out who they are, what other bands they may have been in, to be honest. A couple of F-16s just went screaming by. So their music, I think when you do the screamy vocals and then the clean singing vocals, for me, I'm pretty picky about that. It has to vibe, and it has to feel right. If the clean singing part doesn't feel like it should be sung clean to me, then I'm probably not going to care about it even a little bit. Or if the clean singing part is sung in a way that, I don't know, maybe isn't melodious enough or isn't properly harmonized or what have you, I get kind of annoyed by its existence. And sometimes I think bands, especially in that genre or that style, will add clean singing in just for the sake of adding clean singing, because then they have it and they're like, oh, hey, we do this. I'm not saying that's what they do a lot for the Butcher Babies, but some of their shit definitely gave off, hey, we just didn't feel like screaming this part. And maybe lyrically, maybe it made sense lyrically. Maybe some parts of the songs, I mean, I have lyrics in my songs that if I decided to not growl or scream them, would make sense to not growl or scream them just based on the lyrics. However, based on the music, it seems probably better to do so. I will say, though, that lack of caring about their music notwithstanding, those chicks throw down hard. I will say, I think her name's Heidi. She's the blonde one. I think she used to have very, very dyed red hair, and now it's probably just bleach blonde. But she is, between the two of them, watching the two of those girls manage the crowd and do their vocal front person thing. She is the one. Like, if one of them was going to be sick and they were still going to play the show, it's going to be her that still performs. I don't know that Carla could carry the crowd the way that Heidi does. She holds her own vocally. Like, they both have great voices when they sing in their clean singing, and their screams are brutal. Carla's got more of a deeper, she seemed to do the deeper, lower stuff more. And then Heidi seemed to have more range in her screams. And that it was, the girl's got skills. Heidi does. Like, she can fucking rip. They both can, but she seemed to be fucking just a monster of a vocalist when it came to the screaming. Carla's was too. It was the last day of this tour, and I'm sure all the bands were completely wiped out. You couldn't really tell, especially with them. They just went hard, and like I said, not a big fan of their music at all. But they had some shit that I dug, and those girls fucking just destroyed. If I were to ever go to a show with the Butcher Babies playing, I would go just to see them throw down, and I wouldn't care about the music because I don't. But those girls they can do the thing, and that's awesome. Nonpoint is a band I know nothing about. I didn't look them up beforehand. I don't remember ever hearing any of their music on the radio before. Chris said that he was familiar with one song that they did play. I don't remember ever. I didn't recognize a single song of theirs. I'm pretty sure I've heard something. I just didn't remember any of it. It was so long ago. I will say they carry the nu metal torch very heavily, though. The very bass heavy grooves that they had, kind of rappy vocals with the screamy vocals and the singy vocals all intertwined. They definitely carry the nu metal style of, not the Coal Chamber nu metal style, the goth nu metal influence, but the classic tracksuit, matching color tracksuit, throwback to Korn and the Adidas days. I don't even think Korn does that anymore. It's been forever since I've seen them. But they came out and they were wearing, each one of them had some sort of red tracksuit piece on, whether it was just the pants or if it was like the tracksuit jacket. They probably all had matching shoes. I didn't pay attention to that. What they did have was a fuck ton of fans. There was a lot of people that were into all these bands. It was nice to see that bands who are definitely outside of the trend for even just metal, really still have people who commit to them. And Nonpoint had a huge fan base there. That was surprising. I did not expect that at all. They were decent. I'm not going to go buy any of their music. It just didn't do anything for me, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. And that's kind of how I felt about Butcher Babies too. It wasn't terrible. I didn't hate it. It's just not my thing at all. I don't really have much to add about Nonpoint. I know nothing about them. I never went back and looked up any of their music or lyrics or anything like that, or even where they're from. I think they said they're from California. I probably have that wrong. I don't even remember. They were solid, though. I will give them that. They were solid, had a solid sound, a very good sound. If I was a fan of theirs, I would have been happy. I'm not a fan of theirs. I'm not a fan, I guess. I don't know. But it was nice to see that there were a lot of people there that were, and I didn't expect that. So that's my section about Nonpoint. Yay. After Nonpoint was kind of the reason that at least Chris and Jeremiah bought their tickets, and that was Guar. And Guar I've seen, I want to say twice, maybe 3 times before Dave Brockie died. And I never saw them with the girl that they had filling in on vocals and the front man or front person position. I can't remember her name at all, and I didn't look it up. I never saw them with her. And then I forgot entirely that she wasn't even the person anymore, and they replaced her with this other guy whose name I don't know because I don't know anything about the band. Another band whose music to me is just kind of but their show is the whole reason you go and see Guar. And if you've ever seen Empire Records, they were featured in that. I think they've been featured in a couple other movies. Maybe not featured is the right word, but they were there because of their show. They were part of that shock rock thing that came out, mid 90s. Marilyn Manson was part of that, but Gwar is known for their stage show and having all these different gimmicks and little gimpy creatures that I think have a name that I don't remember what they are, on the stage and executing, quote unquote, celebrity figures or political figures, especially the political figures. And they go out of their way and make all of these props and costumes and stuff, which is really fucking cool. There's a documentary out about them that we saw at Telluride or before Telluride, maybe not last year before. I can't remember when we saw it, but it was all about the band and just how they came into existence. It was a tour through their whole shop. They're also really known for the spraying of fake blood on and, various other liquid delight onto their audience. And when they have a headlining show, they go all out. They bring the whole shebang and they go fucking nuts. They were not the headliners on this, so they definitely didn't have nearly as much. They had a thing with Vladimir Putin come out, and that was pretty funny. They do some very comedic sketches as part of their show, and that leads up to the execution, feeding of their various political parties and celebrities into their machinery of doom and whatever. But they put on a very fun show. Even if the music's, like I said, the music's not bad. It's solid music. It's nothing I really dig into or get into. I don't own any of their music, but it's live. It's fun. And they do really good. And I was kind of concerned that, we're still pretty close. We might get soaked, but no, we were nowhere near the soak zone. I think if they had brought all the shit that they would for their headlining stuff, it's a very real possibility we would have. The first time I saw them was with Chris, and it was in 2004. Happened to be the night that Dimebag Darrell died. We walked into the Ogden Theater, which is in Denver, and if you've been to the Ogden Theater, it holds roughly 3,000 people, I think. We walked in, and the entire place was covered in black plastic. The walls, all the way up to the ceiling, everything was covered in black plastic. We chose, at my behest, because I didn't want to get fucking soaked, we chose to sit up in the balcony, even though I was 24, but I was like, I'm not in the mood to get fucking drenched in this shit. So we sat up in the balcony and watched them from afar. But I think that was after, because Dying Fetus opened for them, and that was cool. I like Dying Fetus a lot, so that was cool. And then Gwar came out and played, and we found out about Dimebag at the end. They finished their set, got off the stage, and as we were walking down the stairs from the balcony, they came back on the stage, and they were not wearing their costumes. They had taken off their costumes, so they were basically in their underwear. And as we were walking out, they had dropped the news that they had found out before they played that Dimebag, they were playing that show in Ohio, and some fuckhead had come on and started shooting and killed Dime. And so they were dedicating this last song, I don't even remember what the song was, to him. And I was like, did they just say that Dimebag Darrell got shot? And Chris wasn't sure either. So we stayed for the song. We left. People were talking, but nobody knew. And then I got home and turned on the TV and got to CNN, and they had a little crawler about it. And actually said, guitar player Dimebag Darrell killed in shooting at nightclub in Ohio. And that was the first night I saw Gwar. And I'll never forget that shit. But anyway, they were great. Even for their half-hour non-headlining set, they were great. And I will say their singer, whose name I do not know, his character name I don't know, his real name I don't know, that dude can fucking sing. That guy's got an incredibly good voice. I really like that guy's voice. Next up was Cold Chamber, which is somebody I've been wanting to see for a really long time again, and never got the chance to. They'd come through to the Summit Music Hall not that long ago. I think either right after COVID shit reopened or right before COVID. I can't remember, but I'm not even a big fan of their music. I liked their first album and then the chamber music album, which might have been their second album. Just because I was young and those kind of had the vibes that I was into at the time. And I just wanted to see them live and didn't get a chance to. So having them come through on this tour, I was like, hell yeah, man, that's cool. I'm down to see some Coal Chamber. And Dez, I like Dez. He's got one of the most unique voices in metal, especially his little growls or whatever. And I remember one of the first pictures I ever saw of him with Coal Chambers, he was wearing this black shirt, and it had this kick-ass picture of Oscar the Grouch from Sesame Street. I was like, that's fucking awesome. And he was playing. It was a live shot. And I was like, I need that fucking shirt. And I never could find that shirt, but it was a badass shirt. And that's the first visual image I remember having of them, except for when I saw them play at Ozfest. So they came out, and there was a dude and his dad sitting next to me, and they were both federal police officers, former military. The guy had started talking to me about how he'd seen these bands, or some of these bands, at Rock am Ring in Germany. And he just kept bringing up Rock am Ring, which I know is a big German festival. And I was like, so Germany? He's like, yeah. I was like, military? He goes, yeah. I was like, all right. So we started talking. He's like, I've never seen Coal Chamber before. What do you think they'll open with? He knew their music, but he'd never seen them. I was like, oh, they're going to open with Loco. He goes, you think so? I was like, that's what I would do if I was them. And sure enough, that's what they opened with, which was awesome. It was cool to see that. What was even more awesome is the number of people that were there, just throwing down, all ages, younger kids, older people, my age, even older. Even his dad was rocking the fuck out. I don't think his dad knew really who they were at all, but he said that him and his dad had made an agreement that, spend time with each other. They just go to concerts. And I was like, that's pretty fucking cool. But watching everybody rock out to this truly new metal vibe was impressive. It was very, very good. They had their stage show. All the bands had it, but for them, they had these, I think it was 10 giant fog smoke machine things, and then crazy good lights, and the programming coordination between the lights and the smoke and all that stuff with the music was just, it was on point. Everybody put a lot of work into making that shit work. And Dez, his voice is still fucking familiar. He's got, or not familiar, it's fucking great. He's got some of the best screams out of a lot of, especially in the new metal. His screams are the most brutal, I think, in my opinion. Not counting his little growly growl thing that he does, which I can't even describe. It's not like a death metal scream. It's like a, I don't know, the closest thing I can think of is not even Cookie Monster. It's like I don't know. It's almost like every time I think it, and maybe it's just because of the Oscar the Grouch shirt, I think of a puppet, like a Muppet, but not Oscar the Grouch, not Cookie Monster, something else. I don't know what it is, but it's his screams, his high screams are just crazy. The dude's 57 years old, and he's fucking killing it, and they all are. And I can't remember her name now. I follow her. The podcast Instagram follows her on Instagram. Their bass player. She's tall, very cute redhead. She replaced the original bass player who has an addiction issue, I think, and she may have passed away. I can't remember. But she's something about those hot chick bassists, man. Gotta love them. Hot chick bassist, redhead. Yep. Good show, Coal Chamber, but it was good to see them being so solid and such a good, solid fan base. And that was shocking to me. Like, I don't know why I expected it not to be as well received as it was. Even though, Fiddlers didn't sell out, it wasn't packed. There's still a lot of empty seats, even with them filling the seats with all the general admission people. But it was good to see that much energy from the people for bands that, really haven't been quote unquote popular or trendy for 20 plus years. So that was really awesome. Which brings me to Mudvayne. Mudvayne is a band that I have had a very strong appreciation for since I think I saw them before I ever heard any of their music. I don't think I heard anything on like Metal Licks on KBPI back in the day before I saw them live. I think I saw them open, or maybe it was Tattoo the Earth 2000 or something. Saw them play and then heard their music. And when I saw them play, they were super, super bass heavy, new metal-y sound, but with their own spin on it. And I'm a vocalist, right? So I pay a lot of attention to most vocals, whether it's straight up death metal, black metal, any kind of vocals. I tend to single those out, although I do listen and I pay attention to all the instruments, especially how they work together and if they do or don't work together. But vocals is almost always where I start. If I can't get into the vocals, I don't care. And that's just how it is for me. But Mudvayne was a band that I did not have any problem getting into because of their vibe, their sound. I'm a bass junkie, so a dude's name who I forgot to write down. I can never remember his name. He's a phenomenal fucking bassist. Watching him play and bounce around on the stage and shit back in the day, I remember that vividly. And he had mostly shaved head with two little locks of hair or whatever that he had spiked up to look like devil horns. And that was kind of his look back in the day, and he's changed that over the years. But they were fucking great, and I've always been a fan of theirs. Their first album, LD50, had songs on there that are like Death Blooms is one of my favorite songs, not just by them. It's just one of my favorite songs. It is such a good mix of very heavy, very angry feeling, and then very clean and beautiful feeling at the same time. Broken down, if that makes any sense. There's just something about Death Blooms that I love, and it's one of my favorite songs of all time. It is just a great song. They played it at this show, which was great. They played Dig, which was great too. For Dig, they brought Heidi from Butcher Babies out, which was cool. She can throw down. Like I said, she's a fucking phenomenal vocalist. She's got some pipes, and I'm not talking about her boobies, which she also has. The one thing I will criticize about Mudvayne, and I'd seen videos from when they first started touring again last year, I think it was. Chad's voice is a little bit questionable these days. He just doesn't quite have it anymore. But that comes with age, and the way he does his vocals is he puts it out there. It's not the safe way of doing the vocals. I admire that. His clean singing, his screams. Getting older, his voice deepens a little bit. I'm sure there's damage in there. He doesn't have quite the ability that he used to, and not faulting him for it at all. That's just the way it goes. He doesn't sound bad most of the time. Definitely had some off-key moments for the clean singing, but that's one of the things I actually like is, a band can auto-tune their vocals live. And that's something I didn't know until just a few years back, but they can auto-tune their vocals live or do pitch correction live. And I'm like, that's cheating, but it is what it is. If a vocalist wants to sound as close to they can as the record, then, whatever, do what you got to do. But to me, I can appreciate the keeping it real aspect of that, which is why whenever I saw Fear Factory, I loved that they didn't do that most of the time. When I saw them for their 20-year anniversary of Demanufacture, where they played Demanufacture start to finish, they didn't auto-tune or pitch correct Burton's clean vocals at all through the entire Demanufacture set. But when they finished that and they went to playing all the other songs, any of his clean vocals that were after Demanufacture, they had pitch correction on them. And I was blown away. I was like, why'd you guys switch that up? Like, why didn't you do it the whole time or not the whole time? Like, I don't get it. But that's what it is. So anyway, it was the last show of the tour. Chad, singer for Mudvayne, he fucking throws down. He puts his heart and soul into his vocals. And for better or worse, like his screams, as intense as they are, I could tell that they were struggling. Anybody who pays attention to that shit can tell that they were struggling. Maybe it's the elevation. Maybe it's just the fact it's the end of the tour. Maybe it's the fact it's all of these things combined. Needless to say, some of that performance aspect felt sloppy. They were still good. The music was still good most of the time. The last couple songs, it seemed like I don't know if they couldn't hear each other or whatever. It was loud as fuck, but it seemed either poorly mixed or sloppy, and I couldn't tell what, at least to me. And that was kind of a bummer, kind of a disappointment just for that. It wasn't bad at all. It just wasn't what I expected from them at that point. But I digress. What I thought was interesting is they have I don't even know how many albums they have out now, because I think they broke up for a long time. I think they put out at least 3 albums when I was actually listening to them. I only own 2 of them, and I don't even know what the third one's called. I never looked, but they have a lot of material. And during their set, Chad went on 2 tirades that both were roughly 5 to 10 minutes apiece. And I don't know if it was just trying to give everybody a break, or if that was, maybe they didn't have time to rehearse the other songs or what have you. But it was just tangential conversation that he decided to chime in with. Like, I'm all about bands talking to the fans in their set. I don't like it when a band comes out and they just play their music and then says thank you and calls it a day. If they chat, at least from time to time, ask even more than just asking how everybody's doing or saying Denver, whatever. More than that is good. When they go off on tangential 10-minute rants, that makes me wonder, like, do they really just have a lot to say, or do they not have a lot of material ready to go, or are they just fucking tired? It's the last show of their tour. It could be a combination of things. At least what he was saying, he went off about how music and the heavy metal community and everything was there for him when he was in his darkest times, and how, it's a one big heavy metal family and support group. And if you're ever feeling down, lean on each other. It was actually a really good thing he was saying. The second tangent, I don't even remember exactly what he was talking about during the first one, but that was a little weird because it was a long rant. I think the second one was close to 10 minutes. And they didn't play nearly as many songs as I expected them to play. And I don't know if it was planned just because of these tangents, but doesn't matter. All I know is it was a very good show, and I was glad to see all of those bands again. I was glad to see those bands doing the thing still. I think Butcher Babies and Nonpoint, I don't think they've ever had a moment in their career where they split up or stopped. Like I said, I don't know anything about those bands, so maybe they have, and I just never researched it because I don't care. Guar, other than Dave Brocky passing away, I don't think they've had much in the way of member changes or anything like that. Coal Chamber, same lineup as they've always been since their second, maybe the third album. I can't remember what album the redhead bassist played on and then started. I think she toured with them and then came back and did another album with them to replace What's-Her-Face. But they were technically broken up for a long time and then would get back together and tour and whatever. Mudvayne, I think, had broken up for a good long time and then did this thing. Doesn't matter, but the tangential conversation, that was a little weird. I'm not gonna lie. A little weird, but it was a good one. It was good. He was talking about some girl, I think she was 11, that was up in the front row, and how important it was for him to have the support of heavy metal people in the scene or his local scene or wherever, and just how it saved his life and how everybody is probably relatable in some aspect because of that very thing where music saved them. Maybe it's heavy metal, maybe it's not. And that resonated, and he even said you might be going through something right at this very moment that's got you a little fucked up. And that kind of spoke to me because I was at that particular moment. But, you know, it was I lost my train of thought. As weird as it was to hear these tangents, it was good. It was still good. Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. I was just glad to see it. It took me back. Like, I saw a lot of pairs of Janko jeans. I only saw 1 or 2 pairs of the strappy Jankos, or the Hot Topic pants is what I call them, because that's the only place I knew that sold them. There was a large group of people playing hacky sack, and that took me back to when I played hacky sack in high school, and I thought for half a second I should join their circle and see what I still got, which is probably nothing, so I didn't. I just kept going to the line for the bathroom, which was the whole reason I was there anyway when I saw them. But it was funny because the group of hacky sackers was somehow not surprising. So, yay. I was going to make this one long episode because I saw also the Mega Monsters tour with Lorna Shore, Mastodon, and Gojira, and we saw that like the weekend right after the psychotherapy sessions. But this is already long enough, so I'm gonna split these up and give it its own episode. And then we're seeing Rob Zombie and Alice Cooper and Cam FDM. Cannibal Corpse is coming up. I'm probably gonna miss Death Clock, which sucks. I got a few episodes on the horizon, and I hope to see you guys soon. Thank you for listening, as always. If you feel like getting any merchandise, I got some, very simple Death Metal Disco logo t-shirts and shit on my Etsy store. If you just go to Etsy.com, you can search for Death Metal Disco. Any support you can give in that fashion is always appreciated. Any sharing of an episode or snip or whatever is great. I greatly appreciate all of you. But anyway, Empyrean Eclipse is still looking for a drummer, so if you are or you know somebody who might have an interest, find us, let us know. Love you all. Be safe. Take care of yourselves. And in the words of the late, great Jerry Springer, take care of yourselves and each other.
Thank you for listening to Death Metal Disco.